With another injury to another Chicago Cubs pitcher that is on the IL, the growing need for us to reestablish our dominance in the Central Division is pending on a couple of moves. One being trading for none other than Tarik Skubal, who the Chicago Cubs have been reportedly in contacts with the Detroit Tigers about. We're going to cover this and more after this. Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of Chicago Cubs Central, your number one spot for all things Chicago Cubs. The Chicago Cubs, guys. I'm your host, Mike Jones. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. I ain't gonna lie to you. I'm not gonna bewilder you with a super long episode today. And I don't watch the short that I did where I was talking about how I feel about the Chicago Cubs right now. I think that will pretty much tell you everything you need to know about how I'm feeling. I'm bewildered. And quite frankly, I'm sick of talking about this team losing. I think that this is an abysmal stretch. And I think that everybody involved ought to be ashamed of themselves. The Chicago Cubs just dropped a 3-game series set to very winnable series set to the Houston Astros, who were 11 games under 500 coming into this series, and literally through Christian Walker alone, pretty much just beat you 2 of those games. One of those games, like I said, it was, it was what it was. It just wasn't even close. You faced a really good pitcher. But then you turned around and Christian Walker basically beat you Saturday and came into Sunday's game, hit a 3-run shot that basically put that game out of reach for the Chicago Cubs. And yeah, that's your game. That is your game. Shota Imanaga is somebody that needs to be replaced. It's over with. It's over. And I hate to say that the honeymoon is over. The league has figured out Shota. I don't know if he's tipping his pitches. I don't know if the Brewers are purposely sending those pitching tips to other teams saying, hey, if you're going to face Shota, this is what you got to do. But literally, that's the split finger fastball combination is no longer effective for Shota Imanaga. And I really don't know what else to tell him or what else to do. But if you're Craig Counsell, you cannot continue sending out Shota Imanaga, Colin Ray, and Jameson Tyone. I mean, it's getting to the point where it's just filthy. It's almost malpractice to send them out there because of the fact that they are getting beat up every single time they go out there. Every single time. And like I said, I mean, okay, so you got a quality start out of Colin Ray on Saturday against the Houston Astros, but he still lost the game, gave up 3 runs. Like I said, that was all Christian Walker in that one, which coincidentally enough is hilarious because I have Christian Walker in my fantasy MLB team, and dude's literally winning me this week alone just based off what he's done to the Cubs. Dude's on fire. But nonetheless, to talk about real ball, I mean, he's just tormenting the Chicago Cubs. And like I said, I just don't know what else to do. I really don't know. I really don't know what the team can do outside of beginning to start to adventure looking into trades. And you may have to trade some people that you necessarily don't want to trade. You may have to look at the potential of trading, say, a Suzuki. You may have to look at the potential of trading Ian Happ. You may have to look at the potential of trading, you know what I'm saying, some of your lower, some of your guys. I mean, I don't know that you, because you have a log jam in multiple spots, so I don't know that you can justify making trades where all you're trading off is, young assets, and then you're still keeping the same crap. I mean, what are you going to do with Ian Happ? What are you going to do with say, Suzuki? Those are the 2 spots I'm looking at right now, but you need a drastic change. The Chicago Cubs were counting on Moises Ballesteros to replace Kyle Tucker this season. And I told y'all to start the season, even in the offseason, I didn't think that was a good idea. Kyle Tucker is a way more polished at bat and way more respected than Moises Ballesteros. Moises Ballesteros was hitting the cover off the bat for the first month of the season. So it all justified itself, right? However, he has slowed down tremendously. And with that, the Chicago Cubs have slowed down tremendously. And we find ourselves in the same pattern we were in last year. However, the bleeding has not stopped yet for this season. So we'll just have to see what happens, man. But anyways, the Chicago Cubs are one of the teams reportedly in on the SKUBAL sweepstakes. So again, this is twofold for me. Like, you want to trade for Tarik Skubal because you want to have him on your team. You need a legit ace on your team. But then you also want to trade for Tarik Skubal because you don't want the Dodgers, the Brewers, the Mets, or the Phillies or somebody like that to potentially, get him, and then you have to go ahead and face them. Same for Aroldis Chapman. It was reported that the Padres are closing in on trying to make a deal for him. I did an episode earlier this week about the Cubs should potentially try to dive into that sweepstakes and see what they can do to potentially get him back instead of him going to the Padres. Could you imagine having to go eighth and ninth inning against Aroldis Chapman and Mason Miller? Who wants to see that? Nobody in the league wants to have to deal with something like that. That is going to be a tough two innings of baseball, 2 to 3 innings of baseball, depending. But like I said, for the Chicago Cubs, you have to put your best foot forward and you have to go for Tarik Skubal. You have to go for this trade. You have to at least kick the tires on that and see what's out there. Now, Tarik Skubal's trade chances are rising, according to John Heyman. Tigers have lost 14 of 16 and are in last place and 5 games out of the wild card race. Tigers have 5 starters on the IL. Skubal is progressing since elbow scope. For Tigers' chances to extend him are very, very small. So that was retweeted out by John Heyman. So again, everybody is now clamoring to get their best deal together to try to trade for Tarik Skubal, and the Chicago Cubs should absolutely be in the sweepstakes too. I mean, but the problem is, and this is a real issue, you really need two. You really need 2 good starters, because you cannot depend on Shota Imanaga and you cannot depend on Jameson Taillon. You just can't. Like I said, Shota Imanaga has been figured out, man, and it has gone horribly, drastically wrong for him. And I don't know what else to say or what else to tell anybody. But like I said, it just went bad. And J-Mo, same thing. The ball it ain't even fully hot yet at Wrigley, and the ball is jumping off the bat of our opponents when Jameson is pitching and when Shota is pitching. Another month of them two just making their everyday starts could potentially ruin the Chicago Cubs season all the way around. Just those two. I don't know. Chicago Cubs got to do something. We're searching. We're scuffling. Something has to be done. But listen, guys, live stream, watch along. Tomorrow, 12:35 Central Time. Cubs take on the Pittsburgh Pirates in a 4-game series set in Pittsburgh. This one is 12:30. The rest of the games will be like 5:40 start time. We'll see. We'll see what happens, man. Good luck, y'all. Peace.
Thank you for watching another episode of Chicago Cubs Central, the #1 spot for all Chicago Cubs content. Remember to like, share, subscribe for more Cubs content.